And welcome to the Howard Eskin Show as we're doing this live on Saturday morning, but you will be able to view it forever because that's what podcasts are in today's world, forever. It's not just when you do it. And I really enjoy talking to people that really are the fiber of the sport that I talk to. And we'll get to our guest, and I'll let you know who our guest is in a second. But I want to welcome, again, two new sponsors. Joining a new sponsor a few weeks ago, and he's had tremendous success. And one of the new sponsors is Piazza Outdoor. Their company is Piazza Property Pros, but they're outdoor and pool experts directly to you, whether you're looking for or dreaming about a pool. Remember, it's summertime. It's summertime. So Piazza Property Pros has you covered. Over 25 years of experience. They specialize in turning your vision into a reality with top-notch craftsmanship, unmatched customer service. All the work is done. And I got to know these people, and I actually got to know them last year. So when I talk about somebody that are now partners with me on the podcast, on the Howard Eskin Show, I know who they are and I know what they do. It's a skilled team, whether it's excavation, landscaping, fencing, landscape, and pool maintenance. Piazza Property Pros will give you excellent results on time, within your budget. Here's a number, 610-566-2608. You can call them at any time for a free consultation, just to get an idea, and I suggest you call them. Or go to the internet at piazzaoutdoor.com to learn more. Piazza Property Pros. If you want to enjoy the summer, this is a way to do it. Another new sponsor on the Howard Eskin Show. And these people, and I made the trip out there the other day, is Audi of Westchester. It was a fun experience. Said hello to a lot of the people there, and it was really enjoyable. And I mean, they have more vehicles than any dealership in the area of the Philadelphia area, and now they got an incentive program going on where you can save money, a lot of money, as you see up there on the screen, $9,000 off new Audi Q5s. I'm telling you, the experience was really nice. Here's something I didn't know. I didn't know people have a first name and last name that are the same. When you walk in there, ask for the used car manager and ask him his name, and then ask him his last name. Once you get the first name, you'll know the last name. Great people, great inventory. Another new sponsor, and welcome to the Howard Eskin Show. And somebody that's been here, and he actually got a call from Texas, a streaming service, which is save you over $100 on your cable. It's YouTube streaming services, which include local and national channels, so you'll get to see everything. You can share your YouTube with two other people at no extra charge. And that's Cut the Cord with Jason. Here's the number, 215-801-5858. All right, so now let's get to our special guest. But before we get to him, I want you to hear his opening game and an exciting moment in his opening game, making the call on a player that I know the Phillies tried to get. Here we go with our special guest and his home run call.
Getting ready in the Cardinals bullpen. Is that one hit high in the air to left? Bader back to the wall. It's gone. How about turning around 98 up and in and driving it out of the ballpark for Nolan Arenado? Crowd wants a curtain call for Arenado. Here he comes.
Oh, it was the call on the opening night for the St. Louis Cardinals. Nolan Arenado, who, you know, if you listen to all the rumors, and some of them are true and some of them are not, was somebody that the Phillies were looking at. But now let's welcome our guest. And he's been a broadcaster of baseball, and I didn't realize he did basketball early in his career, and that would be Chip Caray. Chip, welcome to the program. Now, I would take probably 30 minutes if I ran down your bio with your history, with working with your grandfather, and then your dad. Skip was obviously Harry. Skip was a broadcaster, and now you are with the Braves. Now with the Cardinals, with the Cubs. How did you do basketball at the beginning of your career? I'm going to get that out of the way first. Didn't you do basketball with the Orlando Magic?
Yeah, I was the first TV guy for the Orlando Magic, and there's a Philadelphia connection. All you guys remember Pat Williams. And Pat was with the 76ers and was trying very hard to get NBA basketball down in Central Florida. And as in typical Pat Williams fashion, he's the only guy that believed it was possible at the time, but through the force of his personality, he convinced David Stern to come down and take a look and said, look, Florida's a ripe market. You don't have any teams down here. Let's expand. We could put a team in Orlando. We could put a team in Miami. We'd have a natural rivalry, and you would grow our sport in a part of the world that frankly needs it. So fast forward to the expansion times in the NBA, and Orlando gets a team, and Pat Williams is at the All-Star game, which I believe the year before the Magic came into being was in Houston. And Pat ran into a man by the name of Bob Neal, who used to do NBA on TNT. And Pat, who'd been the GM in Philadelphia, had been the GM briefly with the Atlanta Hawks when my dad was there, ran into Bob, and Bob said, hey, I hear you're looking for a broadcaster for your team. And he said, I got a guy for you. And Pat said, who? And he said, my name. And Pat said, wait a minute, Skip Caray would want to do expansion Orlando basketball? He's in Atlanta. He's established here. And Bob said, no, not Skip, his son Chip. And Pat said, oh God, there's another one. And so Pat being the showman that he was,
Yes.
took a chance on me, capitalized on the last name, the family lineage and all of that kind of stuff, and hired a 24-year-old kid that basically BS'd his way through the first month of an NBA schedule like Bob Costas did when he did the old St. Louis Spirits.
Right.
And I was there 8 years and got to see Shaq and Penny and Horace Grant. And that's, that serendipitous moment by Pat Williams taking a chance on me is what springboarded what to me has been a really, really fortunate career.
You know what, Pat and I were good friends, and may he rest in peace. And I still talk to one of his kids, Jimmy, quite often. But he was an interesting guy. All right, let's get down to the baseball part of it. We heard the call of Nolan Arenado hitting the home run to kind of give a little bit of a cushion for the Cardinals in winning their first game of the season. But during the offseason, and I don't understand why the Phillies were trying to trade Alec Bohm. He makes the best contact of anybody on the team. And he really is, he's really good play. Not great defensively, but he's improved to average. But why did the Cardinals want to trade Nolan Arenado? And obviously those rumors were accurate, correct?
Yeah.
There was talk between those two.
Well, between the Cardinals and Phillies, I'm not aware of. I know for a fact that Arenado had a deal that with his no trade clause, he rejected for himself and his family to go to Houston. The Cardinals had a deal in place to send him to the Astros. That obviously didn't happen. To answer your question as to why the Cardinals wanted to move Nolan, it's economics. The Cardinals are entering a different phase of their existence. For years, they spent their money at the big league level. They would bring in Matt Holliday. They'd bring in Lance Berkman. They'd bring in Lance Lynn, Kyle Gibson. They brought in veteran players to try to win the division, get in the tournament, and advance in postseason play. In doing so, they really let their minor league developmental system falter. And so they are reinvesting those dollars, Howard, in the minor leagues, in technology, in coaching, in coordinators. And it's all below the waterline type stuff that fans may not see and understand. But more importantly than that, moving a Nolan Arenado would give them a chance to play one of their young players who they think can be a 35, 40 home run guy every day. And that's Nolan Gorman, whose natural position is third base. With Arenado still here, obviously Gorman's blocked. And the challenge for Oliver Marmol, the St. Louis manager, is finding enough at-bats for Gorman so that the Cardinals can find out what he is by the end of this season. And that's really a big, big key, not just for Nolan Gorman, but 3 or 4 other young guys who've been here a while, but haven't really either used the runway or taken advantage of the runway that they've had to be major league players. And that's what's got to change here in St. Louis.
Okay, so maybe the Alec Bohm thing came in because would they have been looking for a third baseman? And the Phillies tried. They can say that they didn't. They did. Everybody lies about that stuff. But he's a nice player. who was going to be the third baseman? Was there a chance that Alec Boehm could have been with the Cardinals?
I don't know the answer to that. Again, as I said, in the from the Cardinals' standpoint, if they'd made a deal with Nolan Arenado going elsewhere, the initial plan was Nolan Gorman, who's already here, would be their third baseman. All right, so I would assume that the answer to your question would be no. As we look at the Cardinals team right now, they're always looking for pitching. We could use a right-handed bat, and they could use depth all the way up and down through their system. They've got a lot of good prospects. They've got some pitching prospects that are starting to knock on the door, which is very exciting here. And for the fans who in St. Louis have been jumping on the organization, well, we don't have any young players coming. Well, that's because they're all here. You will see at times a lineup this year, Howard, where 7, 8, 9, even 10 guys, including the starting pitcher, will all be homegrown Cardinals. And that doesn't happen in today's game all that often. And that's, I think, a really, really important distinction that needs to be made. They're going to give these guys a chance. They sometimes didn't have that chance because of the veterans that were here before. Now it's up to them. There's no excuses. Let's see what they can do with it and run.
All right, so let's look at the National League.
Yeah.
The Dodgers are the best team.
Yeah.
They paid for it, but they're still good. I mean,
Yeah.
and they have some players that they had before. Got Otoni. They got another Japanese player in the pitcher. So they're really good. And that doesn't mean they're going to win. The best team doesn't always win. So how do you look at the National League and how it stacks up, whether it's divisions, whether it's teams, and then we'll get to your thoughts on the Phillies as well and where they fit in to that picture.
I think it's the usual suspects. And look, you're right. The Dodgers, they spent the most money. It doesn't guarantee that they're going to win, but it certainly gives them a leg up on everybody else. They're loaded. I think they used 17 starting pitchers last year, and people forget to be able to use 17 pitchers means you have developed an awful lot of pitching depth in your organization. So it's kind of like the rap that the Yankees had, right? Oh, all George Steinbrenner did was buy pennants and buy World Series. Well, people forget the core of that Yankees team was Derek Jeter, Bernie Williams, Mariano Rivera, and Jorge Posada. So it's the same thing with the Dodgers. They're going to be very, very good. They're going to be very, very tough. But as you know, we haven't had a back-to-back winner in our sport in the World Series in a quarter of a century. So there is no guarantee. Once you get in the tournament, anything can happen, and so much depends on health and good luck and good fortune. And luckily for the Dodgers last year, they created their own good luck and took advantage of it. The Yankees certainly didn't help themselves with the way that they played in the World Series. But again, as I said, it should be the usual suspects. The Dodgers are going to be good. The Padres are going to be good. I think the Cardinals are going to be better than people give them credit for. And in your division, I think the Phillies and Braves will be neck and neck all summer long. The Mets will be in that conversation too. But I really like the Phillies team, and I think once the Braves get healthy, look out, they're going to be good too. And no, they'll be a real handful for everybody.
You know, when I've had Larry Bow on the show, and I've had Mike Schmidt, and they're all talking about, Boa says 95 to 100 wins. I don't know how the Phillies can win 95 to 100. But it's, you know, if I gave them the true serum, it wouldn't come out 95 to 100. But regardless, Phillies are a good team. But how hard is it to win? I mean, in the Phillies division, you still have the Mets. I don't know that Washington's any good, and I don't know that Miami's any good. But you still have the Mets and the Braves, and you still play them a lot of times. How tough, and I know the Cardinals are in another division, how tough do you think, and you mentioned the Braves, and you said the Mets will be in the mix. The Braves and the Mets, do you think will be for the Phillies?
I think it'll be great. I think looking back from my time with Atlanta, Phillies seemed to have a big problem. They could never close games out, right? Their bullpen was a mess, and Dave Dombrowski's done a really good job of trying to fix that. You've got an outstanding starting pitching staff, which gives you a leg up on everybody else. But the key for the Phillies or the Braves or the Mets isn't how they do against those other two teams. It's how do they do against Washington and Miami. Like you said, the Marlins, they're spending $40 million on their payroll. That's a AA, AAA team. And historically, the Phillies have had trouble beating the Marlins, right? I mean, that's been their Achilles heel. If you want to win the East, it's not necessarily how you do against the Braves and Mets. You got to beat up on the teams that you should beat on, which is Washington, who's getting a lot better. They're athletic and young. They're trending in the right direction. By the way, Mackenzie Gore only struck out 13 guys in his first start of the year. He's on his way. And the Marlins, yeah, they have Cabrera and they have Alcantara, but they don't have much offense. If the Phillies want to win, they've got to find a way to win in South Florida. When the Marlins come to Citizens Bank Park, they've got to win those series and maybe even sweep one of them if they want to keep pace with the Braves and the Mets, in my opinion.
Well, when you look at the Phillies, they swing for a lot of home runs, and people talk about that. And I'm sorry, and obviously I don't hear your broadcast being in Philadelphia, and don't be offended if this sounds like a criticism. When I am so tired, and Mike Schmidt said he got caught in this trap of hearing about exit velocity and launch angle. You know, a hitter is a hitter. I don't care how hard you hit it, how high the ball goes, and what the launch angle is. I don't care. Do you get caught up in those numbers when you sit there on the air? Okay.
Nope, don't. Unless it's something extraordinary. For example, opening day, Jordan Walker hit a missile down the third base line. It was hit so hard that the third baseman couldn't even react. If the ball was hit 116 miles an hour off the bat, 116. Now, that's the hardest hit ball he's ever had in the major leagues. That's a noteworthy number. But you're right. Every home run's over 100, generally speaking. So who cares? It doesn't matter to me. It's irrelevant. You're right. I don't need a number to quantify that a guy made a great play. I think it's a safety blanket for people who don't have enough to say or anything to say about what's going on, in my opinion. Harry Caray used to say, if you can't tell who the great players are just by watching the game, go do something else. And I think that's really, really true. I think that there's a very small but very vocal minority of people who love all that stuff. And I'm not diminishing them. It's just not my cup of tea. And I don't think I think I can use the number to help quantify what happened. But when the number is the definition of the play and not the play itself, I think we're barking up the wrong tree in our industry.
It's about numbers. It's about analytics. It's about the way a player swings. And Bryce Harper obviously is a terrific player. However, it's that uppercut swing. And a bunch of people, Pete Rose told me one time, it could be a problem against certain pitches. And then Mike Schmidt pointed out, and you see this, that when Realmuto sets up, he sets up high with a fastball because it's hard for an uppercut swing to catch up with a fastball. And Pete Rose mentioned, how do they hit a breaking ball? Do you think, and I know you probably talked to your hitting coach, and some of them have different philosophies, that these players aren't being taught the right way to swing through the baseball?
I don't think it's a matter of they're being taught. I think they're economically rewarded for doing it this way. Owners are paying guys to slug. They're paying guys to hit doubles, triples, and homers and drive in runs. That's it. Period. End of story. They're paying pitchers to strike guys out. They're not paying for outs or innings. They're not paying for runs or RBIs or batting average anymore. And so if you're a player and you want to make your fortune in our sport, you've got to do what the bosses are paying you for. Because, when you look at I don't know what Luis Ariz is making, but this is a guy that flirts with 400 every year, and he's won 3 batting titles. I guarantee he's not making $35 million a year, and he's not hitting 40 home runs. So until the game rewards, like I said, if I were a commissioner for a day, I would pay pitchers on outs, innings, wins, right? I pay my relievers for guys they leave on base and saves, and I'm paying for average, on base, runs, and RBIs. That's what I would do.
It's about contact, and I had Rob Thompson on last year, and I'm not a fan of Schwarber hitting leadoff. Well, he walks. Yeah, but he hits, and last year he was better. Hits a little over 200, strikes out 200 times. He's the only player in Major League Baseball that had 46 or more home runs and only 94 RBIs, and that was a couple of seasons. That was in 22. I'm not a fan of it, but analytically,
yeah, I get it.
Do you like or do you agree with all the analytics? We can't like it as baseball people. Do you agree with all the analytics used in today's game?
Well, the numbers don't lie. And look, I don't think analytics is the dirty word that many of us old timers think it is. It's information. It's how you process the information. It's how you use that information, right? And the numbers are what they are. They don't lie. There is value in what Schwarber does because at the first pitch of the game, a starting pitcher's on red alert right away. If he makes a mistake, it's 1-0, right? And the team that scores first usually wins in a big league game. So that's a big leg up that the Phillies have with a guy like Kyle Schwarber, who, yes, can get on base and set the table for the guys hitting behind him. But no, I don't mind information. I'm all about information. Hell, we trade in information. That's what we do. We just transmit the information vocally through a microphone and pass it along to people. But where the rubber hits the road is there's information, which leads to wins, which leads to entertainment. But when you don't win and you have that information, we're in the entertainment business, right? A sterile number doesn't mean as much as being able to tell guys why, and being able to tell stories about how they got there and how their journey has helped them reach the major leagues. It makes the storytelling aspect of the game a whole lot more sterile than it used to be. And going back to what I said before, did you need a number to quantify that Stan Musial was one of the greatest players ever? Did you need a number to know that Richie Ashburn was terrific and wonderful and fun, or Mike Schmidt or Larry Bowa or Greg Luzinski or Steve Carlton, for Christ's sake? No, of course not. You just watched them play and you watched them do their thing and enjoyed the moment without having to dive into every single number and what his spin rate was. I really don't think fans care all that much about it. They want to know who won, how they won, did Harper hit a home run, did Nola strike out 10, and where are the Phillies in the divisional race? If you keep it simple like that, I think that's kind of the way I try to do it.
All right, well, here's where a part of my problem is if you use analytics too much. Strikeouts, a lot of people said, well, it's still an out. It doesn't mean that much. Well, you still have a chance of an error, moving a runner, if the hitter makes contact. But the other problem with a guy like Schwarber leading off just because he walks is analytics, you don't steal anymore. So Kyle Schwarber slows down the speed behind him. Now, but it doesn't steal. I missed the first to third. I missed the stolen bases because that's excitement. And the one thing I said to Rob Thompson, he says, well, look at our record with Schwarber leading off. I says, yeah, but then what happened in the playoffs? And he went silent. I kind of bust his chops. I want speed at the top.
Yeah.
And Kyle Schwarber's still going to get good pitches and maybe better pitches and more fastballs if men are on base.
Well, that's a Faustian bargain, right? You're trading power, right, for all of those things you talked about. And when the home runs come, they're great. In the playoffs, when they're tougher to hit, well, then how do you manufacture runs? And the challenge for today's major league teams is this, Howard. I believe it's tougher to hit now than it ever was. Pitchers are stronger. They throw harder. They have more movement now than maybe they have had in 40 or 50 years. It's tough in a big league game to string together 2, 3, 4 hits in an inning. It just is. And so teams sit back and try to backleg a 3-run homer. And when they get it, great. When they don't, well, then you got to figure something else out. But that's just the way the game's played right now. And at the end of the day, it's still a great game. It's still baseball. I still love it. As you said, you don't have to like it. You have to accept it because at the end of the day, it's not our game. It's not. It's the end game. It's the player's game. It's the owner's game. And we're along for the ride, and we try to sell it as best we can. And even when it drives us crazy sometimes with some of the things that we see that makes us scratch our heads, it's still the greatest game ever invented.
Well, we talk about stolen bases. All right, we're never going to get numbers of Ricky Henderson. Those days, you're not going to have. It would be impossible in today's game for a player. It's not impossible. It's improbable because of the analytics to steal 100 bases. But it created such excitement. It created havoc for the pitcher.
Correct.
And now, with the pitcher only being allowed, and I don't know that I like that rule, only being allowed to go to first base 2 times. The third time, if you don't get him, I think the way the rule reads is the player gets the next base. But it would create so much more excitement, intensity, and thought. And when people sit in the stands and you're in the broadcast booth and you're sitting up there and says, I wonder what the manager's going to do. I wonder what the player's going to do. And for fans, because at times there's lulls in the game, for fans, it's, I wonder what he's going to do. And it creates a thinking process. I grew up as a fan, and my family had seats behind the dugout on the visitor side. And it was always enjoyable to think, well, what are they going to do? What's he going to do? Don't you think people the fans miss that a little bit because
No
we know what
question.
they're going to do. They're not going to do anything.
Well, if nobody likes the three outcome game, right? Walk, strike out, homer. Nobody likes that. That's what baseball's trying to change. And to your point about stolen bases, I'm starting to see the pendulum swing back a little bit. Truly, it's never been easier to steal bases in Major League Baseball than it is now. The bases are bigger, for one. The throwover rule, number two. But the third and most important factor, I think, is that for 15, 20 years, we de-emphasized the stolen base, and watching the mechanics of catchers trying to throw out base runners is astounding to me. The one knee down, the framing, the stealing of strikes down below, all that kind of stuff really, really makes it tough for catchers to be in proper throwing position to throw out guys. So to your point, more and more teams are starting to think, well, wait a minute, this is a free base. Let's go ahead and take it. Damn the analytics. And to your point about the playoffs, when you need a stolen base, you don't think a stolen base is important? Ask the Red Sox and Dave Roberts how important a stolen base can be and how that can change the momentum of an entire series and an entire team season. So I think teams are starting to recognize and reconcile, shall we say, reality with the analytics. And sometimes you got to throw the numbers out the window and throw caution to the wind and take some chances. And as it was said, fortune favors the bold, and I think by and large that's going to be proven true.
Bob Boone, who you remember and I
Yeah.
remember, and I don't know how many people that are watching the podcast, right, the Howard Eskin Show, remember Bob Boone. He was the catcher for the Phillies World Series team in '80. Obviously, his son manages, and I know Aaron well, manages the Yankees. And he doesn't listen to his dad either because he allows his catcher with the one knee. It's terrible. And one point that he brought up, which a lot of people don't think about, let's say you have a 3-ball count and the pitcher wants to throw a breaking ball, but there's a man on third. Pitcher might be a little hesitant because it's not as easy. It's not easy at all, but it's not as good to have one knee down if you have to block that breaking ball, which might be in the dirt. So I don't understand why somebody starts it and then everybody goes with it.
I'll
I
explain
don't know
that to
why.
you. And I asked that question a couple of years ago with a major league catching coach. And I asked him that exact question. Okay, runner at first, I get it because you're trying to steal the low strike, right? You're trying to get that massage the ball up to make it look better and get the low strike. That's number one. Number two, I asked this coach, well, how many of those stolen strikes do you think you get? What would be an average number you get with your 12 or 13 pitchers that you use in 3 games over 27 innings? They said, 15, maybe 16. We might get 15, 16 borderline pitches called strikes. I said, so that's worth the potential of you giving up a run or two. He said, yeah, because you don't always give up the run. You don't always give up the
Mhm.
base. He said, but think of it this way: 15 or 16 pitches in a series is one appearance by a reliever. That's one inning's work for a reliever. That means over 26 series or 54 series, whatever the heck the number is, that's 54 fewer appearances that a reliever theoretically would have to make because you're getting those 3 extra outs. So again, using the analytics as an example, there's one where that's something I had not thought of, and it does make sense, assuming that the math works out the way that it does. The bigger issue, I think, is what's going to happen going forward. If baseball employs the ABS, the automated balls and strike system, which I don't think is going to happen anytime soon, but let's
No.
assume it did. What is going to happen to the art of catching? Because then you won't need to frame any pitches. All you need to do is catch it because the computer will tell you if it's a ball or strike. And who then is going to teach the catchers how to throw out base runners, how to back pick, how to throw to the right base, right? Mechanics of blocking balls in the dirt. What's going to happen with that? Well, we're going to find out. We're going to find out. And all this stuff will have to be forgotten and then retaught on the fly at the major league level, which I think will be very interesting.
There was a rule in spring training, and I haven't seen it yet, so I guess they didn't take it into the season, where a batter can challenge a ball or strike call.
Batter, catcher, or pitcher could challenge a called pitch, and it worked pretty well, to be honest with you. People asked me what I thought of it. The way it works is there's a borderline pitch. The catcher can ask immediately. The pitcher can tap his cap, or the batter can tap his cap if the call goes against him. The umpire turns around, so the last pitch is challenged. It goes up on the scoreboard in 4 seconds. They have a 3D simulation, kind of like what you see on the MLB Game Day app.
Right.
You see the ball go through the rectangle, and it's either ball or strike, and the umpire says the call's confirmed, or nope, that pitch is ruled a ball, and it's changed. I would like to see a total of two. Whether you keep them or lose, you don't get to keep using them over and over and over again, because it creates strategy of when you use them. 2 outs, runner at first in a 5-run game, who cares? But ninth inning, bases loaded, and it's a 2-2 pitch and it's a borderline call. You want to get those right, and that's the strategy that you could use to create a buzz. And when you talked about the fans wanting to see something, what I noticed in the ballparks in spring training was there was a buzz. Ooh, was that a strike or a ball? And they're all looking up at the scoreboard, and they see the ball fly through the box and miss by 1/2 of a centimeter. They go, ooh, wow, that was close. And it also illustrates, frankly, just how good the umpires are at calling balls and strikes. There aren't really that many they miss.
Well, umpiring, it's like in all sports, it's tougher and tougher to be an official
Terrible,
in
yeah.
sports, because the game is speeded up, and I don't know if the umpires have sped up. But here's another issue, and I don't know if it comes to the game that's changed a little bit, and it's not the game that we remembered, and things change. I mean, change is important in the pursuit of success, and I understand that. But ESPN, and I heard the commissioner the other day talk about ESPN is dropping baseball, or they didn't offer them the same money, so baseball said no. Is the sport losing its luster, and do you think that's the reason that ESPN really has backed off on the game of baseball as their partner?
Well, I can't answer what ESPN thinks or doesn't think. I think that what makes baseball such a beautiful game is it's a local and regional sport. It's tough to sell nationally. I've done national games. I'm not particularly good at doing it because I have a vested interest in the game. When you're a national guy, you parachute in, you do the game, you hope it's a good game, you hope it's a close game, something to talk about, and then you go to your next assignment. I love the everyday aspect of following a club each and every day. Doing those network jobs is really, really hard because you don't know. You don't have the relationships that the local broadcasters have on a day-to-day basis with what's really going on with the team. You parachute in and parachute out. Has baseball lost its luster? I don't think so. I think baseball is learning the importance of marketing its players. The NBA and David Stern were geniuses at doing that when it was Bird and Magic, starting that cross-country rivalry, which was so great carrying over from their college days. We got a taste of it with Ohtani and the Dodgers, and we're going to be Ohtani'd out, I'm sure, at some point. But when you look at what the sales have been and what the ratings have been for Ohtani and the Dodgers, that's great for the sport. I'm sure in Philadelphia, you won't be able to buy a ticket when he gets there. And it's the same with Bryce Harper, who's a great player and a star player. But I think our sport needs to do a much better job of marketing guys. That said, the players have to understand, too, they have a responsibility and a hand in that. You can't say no all the time. And it is TV that pays the freight. And when a TV reporter for a team or a regional cable network, or a network for that matter, comes up and asks for a guy's time for 5 minutes and they blow you off, well, that's not helping sell the product either. So that, I think, has to change, too.
Yeah, it's. I guess it's the way the game's covered too, and the. I don't want to get into the Hall of Fame, but you have people voting on Hall of Famers that never even really saw those players play. So I have a little bit of an issue with that. But you probably get a vote for the Hall of Fame.
I don't.
You
No,
don't?
nope. It's writers. It's writers only.
Well, and that's a problem too. And so I'm being challenged right now because doing podcasts don't get credentials, which is ridiculous. When baseball writers can be out of work for 20 years, but if you were a baseball writer, you're credentialed for life. I mean, baseball's got to turn around and realize the writers aren't the main part of promoting the game, if that's what you want to call it, when you report on the game. It's just ridiculous. The White House allows podcasters. But regardless, that's another story for another day. But when you brought up covering different teams. You did the game of the week for, what was it, for Fox?
Well, I was a studio host for Fox, and I did it for TBS.
Oh, for TBS. All right.
Yeah.
So you brought up the relationships that you have with players. How difficult was it for, or is it, and was it for a broadcaster to do a national game when you're not around those two teams during the season as you are with your home team?
It's really hard because, as you know, you've been around the Phillies every day for years. You know what it's like when you go to the ballpark. Monday's game impacts what happens on Thursday. Tuesday's game impacts how you use the bullpen and who's playing and who's hot, who's not. You just see things and you sort of absorb it through osmosis, and have a feel for what's going on. When you parachute in, as I said, and you show up on a Friday, you go to the game, you go down to the batting cage, you talk to guys. You've got a stack of papers this thick of notes and clips. You try to fill in as many gaps as you possibly can, but the network guys, as great as they are, can't possibly know what's going on a day-to-day basis because they're not there until, of course, you get to the playoffs. And that's a different animal because the networks get much greater access. They get individual meetings with the managers and coaching staffs. They get meetings with the players to talk about things that happen during the game and get road maps as to what's going to happen, who's available as far as bullpen usage is concerned. All of that is incredibly helpful, but it's a different animal. And especially when, I worked for the Braves, right? Do you think Charlie Manuel liked it when I came into his office and was asking him about the state of the Phillies, knowing that 2 days later I was going back to Atlanta to see Bobby Cox? No, that's difficult, right? You got to be a professional and understand what stays in Charlie's office stays there. But yeah, you got to wonder what's a state secret and what's not. That just adds to the degree of difficulty, I think.
It's kind of interesting that you say that, and those kind of things changed as well. But got to talk a little about your history because one of the responses, one of the comments that I see here on social media, this one person really liked your dad, Skip. But working in a baseball family, were you? What's the word? Predained or
Indoctrinated.
indoctrinated to be a baseball, like my son's on the air at WIP, but he was management. I have another son who's works for Disney. He's a manager out there and works with the actors, kind of like the media business. But were you preordained to be a baseball person and maybe a play-by-play guy because of your grandfather Harry and because of your dad Skip?
Yeah, I'm a Nepo baby, but the answer to your question is no. I didn't know Harry Carey very well. My grandparents were divorced. I didn't really spend a lot of time with my dad. My parents divorced. In fact, when I was 5 years old, I remember my dad backing out of the driveway to leave our family. He and my mom weren't going to work out. And I asked my mom, "Where's dad going?" And she said, "He's going on a long road trip." That's how I remember their split up. I didn't really get to spend much time with Harry Carey until I became the Magic's announcer 24 in 1989. And once I was in the club, all of a sudden, well, wait a minute, there's another one that wants to do this. Once I did that and was in the pros in 91 with the Braves, got to spend time and work and be around my dad a lot more. So to answer your question, no, I'm not qualified to do anything else. But this is what I can do, right? I can say ground ball to second and read a promo. I mean, that's what I'm able to do. The fact that my dad did it and my grandfather did it, and now my sons are doing it, is really, really remarkable and fun. But no, I was never preordained to do this. My mother's dad was a dentist here in St. Louis, and I thought about medical school. I went to the University of Georgia and had a professor of law that almost convinced me to go to law school instead. But I decided I'd rather fly on a charter. I'd rather fly on a charter and talk to shortstops than read torts. So no, I can't imagine doing anything else. But this is something that the bug bit me when I was in high school, and my dad never ever pushed me or tried to trick me into doing it like
Right.
he did to him. And when I said I think this is what I want to do, he was like any other parent. He tried to help in any way he could, and here I am.
You said you didn't talk to your grandfather, Harry Carey, very much, but didn't you work with him for a short period of time on the games? Is that?
No. That we were supposed to. The Cubs
Oh,
hired me. The Cubs hired me. Well, they tried to hire me twice. After Tommy Brenneman left, they tried to hire me, and they hired Pat Hughes, who's their Hall of Fame radio announcer.
right.
And then a couple years later, after the '97 season, the Cubs hired me, and I was going to work with Harry that year. He was going to do the home games and maybe come to St. Louis or go to New York, and I was going to do all the road games with Steve Stone and do the middle three. He died before spring training. He fell in Palm Springs and never woke up, and so I was incredibly sad about that for obvious reasons. Harry Carey, for all of his faults, was a walking, talking baseball encyclopedia. And he saw Jackie Robinson play in his first year in the major leagues. He took the train with Stan Musial to Brooklyn and hung out with Red Barber and was one of the first guys that went with the Cardinals to the West Coast to see the Dodgers and Giants when they left New York. That's the baseball side of it. The personal side is, how'd you meet my grandmother? What was my dad's favorite color? Did he have a dog? How good an athlete was he? What was St. Louis like in the 1940s and 1930s? Tell me about your family. All those family things that those ties that bind are still untied because I never got to spend any meaningful time with him.
Well, that's too bad. All right, one last question, and I appreciate the time. When I'm talking to somebody that understands what we're talking about, it's really kind of fun, and I do appreciate this.
My pleasure.
You touched on the Hall of Fame, and I got to touch on it again because I asked Mike Schmidt about Pete Rose. He said for all the wrong things he's done, he should be in the Hall of Fame. And he tried with Joe Morgan one year to talk to the commissioner, who was Bud Selig at the time. But the reality, he says, we've all done things that haven't been right. And Pete went to an extreme with the gambling part of it.
Mhm.
But you have guys that cheated. Barry Bonds, allegedly, we'll use the word allegedly. Mark McGwire, who I think admitted it, that he used steroids. They cheated the game. And they'll never get in the Hall of Fame, I don't think, but they're still on the ballot. Do you think Bonds, McGwire, or Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, it's a great question because I have the same moral conflict that you have, right? Rule 21, it's in every locker room. Anybody with a duty to perform that bets on baseball is suspended for a year. Anybody with a duty to perform that bets on his or her own team can be suspended for life. It's been in there since the Black Sox scandal. That said, yeah, when you think about Rafael Palmeiro, you think about Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire and Roger Clemens and Barry Bonds and so many others who aren't in the Hall of Fame. To your point, yeah, there are guys who did things that they shouldn't have done that are in there. I think the way around this is I don't think we give our fans enough credit or we ask our fans to do enough research on their own. Why not, if you think that they're worthy of being among the best players in the game, put it in the plaque, play it with a line, play it in what's commonly known as the steroid era, and let the fans decide for themselves. I personally don't believe that someone else going into a hall of honor diminishes my potential greatness, right? I would sleep well at night knowing I did it right. That's not for me to judge what someone else did. I understand the moral outrage. I understand the cheating, the game part of it. But let's face it, pitchers were doing it too. More guys were doing it too. We just caught a few. We didn't catch them all, and that's unfortunate that some are lionized and some are penalized. And that's the unfairness part, I think, that really sort of sticks in everybody's craw. And I don't know that there's a real great answer to it other than what I suggested, which is if they're great players and you think they're worthy of being in the Hall of Fame, put them in there, but with that little line that says played in this particular era, because everybody who knows baseball knows what that era meant. And let's face it, nobody's complaining about the money that was made. I'm not seeing anybody give the money back that these guys made, ownership and TV and themselves. Nobody's complaining about that part of it, Howard. And I think that to not talk about that is really, really the most hypocritical part of it.
All right, I lied. I got to admit, because there's one last question because I'm thinking about it, and I know people in Philadelphia. The window is going to close soon for the Phillies, but if you had to take three teams that have a chance, or four if you want, three teams that have a chance of either getting or winning the World Series in the National League, which teams would you take?
Phillies, Braves, Dodgers, right now. Phillies, Braves, Dodgers. In no particular
Not the Mets,
order.
huh? Not the Mets.
Well, their pitching's a mess right now. But if they get their pitching in order, yeah, I think so. The Mets will be terrific. They'll be good too. But we used to say all the time in Atlanta as a joke, Mets are going to Met, right? Something screwy is going to happen with the Mets, right? I have so much respect for Bryce Harper as a player and as a person and as a father. It's really been fun watching the evolution of his life, right? Coming up as a teenager and being a superstar at a young age, and he handled it very, very well, in my estimation, from the outside looking in.
Right.
Love the excitement of Trey Turner. I really like your manager a lot. I'm a huge fan of Dave Dombrowski. I've known Dave forever. Not well, but I've known Dave forever, and I have such great respect for his baseball acumen. And I love coming to your ballpark. I mean, Citizens Bank is a tough place to play, man. When you're an opposing player or broadcaster, you learn things about your mom you never knew, even when you're behind the microphone. But it's a great place to play, and I think that's a big advantage for your team. Your point about the window, yeah, they've been there. The next logical step for the Phillies is to advance another step or two and get there, and I think they've got as good a chance of any with that rotation, with that lineup.
Chip, I can't thank you enough. It's like I said, it's fun to talk to people that understand the game that they're talking about, because some people may be involved in the game, but I don't know if they understand the game.
Well, I'll use I don't know. Oh, you're very kind. I don't know. I don't know that I understand it as well as I possibly could, but I'll use the Scott Skiles line. Are you ready?
Okay.
Or maybe it was John Wooden.
Okay.
Baseball's like church. Many attend, few understand.
That is actually a great line. With that,
So
we'll close
I
it.
stole it from Wooden and Scott Skiles. You can steal it too.
Well, we all steal something from somebody. I mean,
That's it.
Because if it's a great line, it's when I said change is important in the pursuit of success. Doug Collins told me that. And he used that by changing teams. Not that he wanted to be a head coach for many different teams, but then he did broadcasting. Then he went back. Hey, we learn from other people. That's
it.
That's important.
That's it. Well, I learned a lot from you. It's great to see you, buddy.
All right, and thank you very much, and looking forward to seeing you and continued great success. You're a legend, so I'll just leave it with that.
That's a nice way of saying I'm old. I really appreciate it.
You're not old, you're just older. Happy birthday, and say hello to all
I
the people
appreciate
who are
it.
there
We're not
with you
counting
now.
anymore. I appreciate that.
See you later.
See you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Chip. He's great. Chip is great. What a great guy. And I thank him for coming on. It's fun to talk to people that understand the game. All right, so now there's some other things that we're going to address. But before we address them, again, welcoming our new partners to the podcast and the Howard Eskin Show. New is Piazza. You want to make a little transformation? Piazza Property Pros. And I'm going to see the one thing that I want to emphasize. When I talk about these, I am hesitant to talk about people where I don't have a personal connection, where I haven't talked to them and understood and learned about who they are and what their business is. And Piazza, I know they worked, I don't want to say that I have a pool, but they worked on my pool last year. Piazza Property Pros. They're really good. They're really good at what they do, and it's important because Piazza Outdoor and Pro Pool, Piazza Property Pros, whether it's in new in-ground pool, a pool renovation, they got you covered. Over 25 years of experience specializing in turning your property. The vision you have into reality with top-notch craftsmanship and unmatched customer service. Unlike other companies, they don't subcontract out their work, whether it's excavation, handscaping, fencing, landscape, pool maintenance. Everything is done in-house by their skilled team, so you can trust them. Here's a number, 610-566-2606, 610-566-2606, or check them out on the internet, piazzaoutdoor.com. Trust me to trust them. Another new sponsor today, and it's Audi, Audi of Westchester. I was really, when I walked into their showroom, and I'd been there a couple of times, and then I met the people. First of all, they have more cars, over 300 vehicles. So when you want a vehicle, Audi of Westchester can get you the vehicle. You're not going to say, well, you got to wait 2 months or you got to wait a month. If you want it, they have it. with over 300 vehicles in stock, ready. And now they have an incentive program with $9,000 off new Audi Q5 models. The Q5 is a very, very popular model. I have the A6 and the Q5, and they're really, really, I love the vehicle, and I love meeting the people. Everybody that works in a business should be friendly, but I'm going to tell you right now that the people at Audi of Westchester were very, very friendly. Got to meet a lot of people when I was there just a few days ago. You want a vehicle? Audi of Westchester. And another sponsor that we've had now for a few weeks, and the response has been incredible, and that's Cut the Cord with Jason. One TV bill for multiple homes. That's important. You cut your bill by at least $100 each month, your cable service. So all that expensive internet and streaming, it no longer exists because it's streaming, it's not cable. And Cut the Cord with Jason. He's had people call from all over. One call from Texas. So you can get all the Philadelphia Pro games. If you have a second home, no cost. You can put it in your second home. And Jason can set up you with one monthly TV bill for both houses. For more information, call Jason at Cut the Cord and save money. 215-801-5858. That's 215-801-5858. All right. There's some things that I really do want to talk about. And we mentioned ESPN dropping baseball. They're not paying the same money. It's incredible that ESPN pays for basketball. The basketball product sucks. The NBA sucks. There was a game that was won by over 50 points a few days ago when we're doing this. 50, I forget who it was. 50 points. It's the team. Who was it? Indianapolis beat Washington. Washington the day before beat the Sixers. That shows you how bad the 76ers are. They suck. That's an embarrassment. And the fact that they're telling season ticket holders, oh, we're not going to raise the price for 2 years. How about lowering the price? It's so overpriced now. You can get tickets for $2 on the websites before games. It's crazy. It's crazy that they spend all that money on the NBA. Hey, listen, baseball has some challenges. The game's a long game. There's too many lulls in the game. That's part of it. But now with broadcast, it's hard to, everybody's trying to save money. I'll bring up another point. There was a radio company that I mentioned, but anyway, it's disappointing. But again, it's a financial situation. It's disappointing what's happening to radio because that's where I grew up in the business, then went to TV, and radio stations are dying. All radio. There's a company, and it was Cumulus, that turned off the switch. I said turned off the switch. They're done. On 20 of their stations, they just turned off the switch on another one. And some of those are FM stations. It's amazing what's happening. And that's why when people advertise on this podcast, they get results because I'm talking directly to people. When radio stations advertise for people, when they go on the stream, those commercials are gone. They don't exist on the stream. These commercials by these people, and if anybody has interest in that, I got another email. Go to howardeskin.com, and if you want to advertise on the podcast. But it's a shame what's happening to radio. It's a business that's, I hate to use the word dying, but it's dying. The advertising is overpriced for what you get. It's a shame. But you and I can't guarantee anything, but people have gotten results by advertising, and we're partners by advertising on the podcast. But baseball, the Phillies, and I talked about it with, by the way, I invited callers on social media. If anybody wants to join the program, there's a link there that you can join the program. And if you have something that you want to say, something you want to talk about, feel free. The link is on the streams, and you can click in and be a part of the program. And I'm sure there's questions. But the Phillies, I don't know that the Phillies are a World Series team because of the issues that I think they have with their lineup. Now, in the first game, Rob Thompson did not lead off Kyle Schwarber, but that was because it was a lefty. My understanding is Rob Thompson is going to lead off Kyle Schwarber against right-handers and not lead him off against left-handers. I think he should hit 5. I know he hit a home run the other night, but the Phillies, again, in their opening game, struggled scoring runs. They only scored 3 runs in 9 innings. I know it's the first game of the season. They won the game, and they won it in the 10th inning, but that I think is their challenge. Their pitching is good, assuming that there's no injuries.
3 guests waiting.
Oh, we do. We have 2 people that want to come on. Okay. Let's do it right now. But I think the Phillies do have challenges. All right.
First up is Hawk.
Okay, Hawk, you're first here on the Howard Eskin.
Hey,
Eskin
Howard.
Show. How are you, Hawk?
I'm doing good. How about you, buddy?
I'm great.
Hey, that was a great interview with Chip.
Good guy. Good guy.
In fact, all your podcasts are really fun to watch. And
Thank you.
I
And thanks
think
for being
that-
a part of it. Thanks for being a
Yep.
part of it.
radio's a thing of the past. I agree with you.
What's the thing of the past?
Radio.
Oh yeah, it's dying. People listen to podcasts. That's the way of the future. So what's up? And the thing is, somebody just sent a message. I always keep it real, and that's what I try to do. And my guests know I haven't always agreed with everything with my guests. Now Chip's not local, so we haven't had our run-ins, but I have with other guests that I had on. But they understand that I'm just doing my job. So it's just, but I try to make it fun. And that's why I think people, especially on YouTube, I've gotten more subscribers, and I suggest people, you can watch it on all the social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And the subscribers have reached really great levels, but I urge people to subscribe to YouTube. But what did you want to talk about?
Speaking of run-ins, can you relive that story with Charlie Manuel?
Charlie and I get along
And then
great
I'll leave
now.
you go while you tell the story.
Okay, well,
Okay.
Charlie, I don't think was tough enough on players. This was 2007. I don't think he was tough enough on players. And I asked him a question in the post-game news conference about being a little tougher. And I just had that week, it was early in the season in 2007, early in that week, I saw Lou Piniella, manager of the Cubs at the time, air out his team. So I asked Charlie if he needs to be a little, because the Phillies started off poorly, if he needs to be tougher. And he says, "You don't think I'm tough enough? Why don't you step into my office? I'll show you I'm tough enough." I said, "Okay, I'll be there." So he was waiting for me. He goes a different way to his office from the press conference room, and I go. So I saw him waiting outside his office. I says, "You coming in?" I says, "Absolutely." Came in, and we started talking, and he says, "You've been killing me for 3 years." And it was still only his 3rd year. I says, "You've been managing this team for 3 years?" And he got up and he came after me, and Milt Thompson, who was in the office, he was one of the coaches, and I think Davey Lopes was in there too, and the public relations person was in there. He says, "You've been managing this team for 3 years?" And he comes storming around his desk and comes after me. And I said, and Milt Thompson grabs, and he wasn't going to do anything. So he comes after me. I says, "I've had enough of this. You shouldn't get tough with me. You should get tough with the players out in that locker room." So I'm in the locker room. Part 2 of that is I'm standing by Freddie Garcia. Remember the picture the Phillies had, Freddie Garcia? I'm standing there, want to talk to him after the game. He lost. And he comes by and he says, "I should drop you right here." And I says, "Why don't you grow up?" And he says, "I've been growed up." So it's the whole thing was kind of humorous. We get along great, and we kid about it now. So that was the story Charlie Manuel. We have somebody else on?
Yeah, next up, Apu Nani.
Apunani, let's jump in. What's
Hello,
up?
Howard. How are
How
you?
are you? How you doing?
Do you know Adam Eaton?
Who?
Adam Eaton, 2007,
I know who he was. He was a pitcher for the Phillies. Adam Eaton was a pitcher for the Phillies.
$2.45 million. That's how
Yeah.
much they paid him.
Well, yeah, but he stunk. He was stealing money too.
And he had a 6.25 ERA.
Yeah, 2.5 million guys. The 25th player on the roster, and now I don't know if it's 26 now, but the last player on the roster makes more than 2.5 million in many cases. But it's just actually he was on the team. I think he was on the team when the Phillies won the World Series in 2008, and he got a ring. Which is hey, as long as you're on the team, that's all that matters. But not a good guy. I mean, the money now is outrageous. It's ridiculous. So you have a problem with the money, is what you're telling me.
Way too much money.
Yes, and you are absolutely correct. But it's not going to go backwards. It's not going back because as long as I don't know what baseball is going to do, because I don't know if that money will figure into paying players. But they get so much. Baseball teams get so much money from television and the broadcast that that's part of what they pay players. So now it's just pushed off to the fans. It's just pushed off to the fans, and
Where
that's
do you buy your sport coat?
my sports coats.
Yes.
Where do I get them? Well, this is a custom suit coat, and Maroney Custom. They're in Mullica Hill, New Jersey, and they make my suits now, and they do a great job. Dan Maroney does a great job making my suits. And Apunani, I appreciate you joining the program, and I've invited people, and we're going to try to do that every show to invite people on the program. And thanks, and you have a great day, and as we speak right now, have a great weekend. It's just, where do I get my suits? Well, I just, hey, listen, I try to style what it's all about. It's just, I mean, it's just all kinds of, even the insides look good. But whatever. No, I just, there is something that I wanted to play, but I went quite a while with Skip Caray. So it's just but I'll play it the next show. It stands. It's good for quite a while. It's good. So whatever the case. All right. I appreciate your being aboard. I appreciate our new partners and sponsors. Piazza Property, which is Piazza Outdoor and Pro Pool. But you can check them out. And the number for piazzaoutdoor.com or 610-566-2608. There it is, Piazza Property Pros. Good people, and I know their work because I've had work done by them. I know their work. If you want to have a fun summer, you can just check it out. You can call for a consultation. And also, Audi Westchester. Fun place when I popped in there the other day. And it was enjoyable to talk to their employees. Over 300 vehicles available, largest availability inventory in the market. And you want a car, and they will have it. And right now, an incentive program going on at Audi Westchester. $9,000 off new Q5 models. And cut the cord with Jason. And a lot of people are cutting the cord. They're cutting the cord, and they're saving a lot of money on their cable by eliminating the cable and having a streaming service. And remember, with that streaming service, with YouTube, you will get all the channels that you get with your cable system. And you have, I believe it's two. I know it's one. I believe it's two. You can hook up two other homes to that service without any additional charge. Cut the cord with Jason, 215-801-5858. All right, everybody have a great weekend. Again, thank you for being a part of the program on the Howard Eskin Show. And it is available. If you ever miss part of it, you want part of it. And all my podcasts are available on the platforms of Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And I urge you to subscribe to YouTube. And you will get notifications when I run the podcast or I run pieces from the podcast. Again, have a great weekend. Thanks. We'll be back on Wednesday night live at 7:30, but available forever. And the sponsors are available forever. And if you have any interest in sponsorship, howardeskin.com is where you can go to let me know, and we'll talk about it. Have a great weekend. And thanks to everybody for being a part, and thanks to Chip Caray. Take care.